Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to introduce you to the different roles available for you to choose from and also walk you through how to access LinkedIn Learning Path to learn the foundational knowledge required for each specific role. So if you get to the LinkedIn Learning Path section, then you'll be able to see the different roles available. I designed the specific roles to help you work a little bit better during the Creative Jam challenge. And also, because UX is such a vast field, it's nearly impossible for you to get the foundational knowledge ready within a month or two. So I want to minimize the amount of knowledge you have to learn to be able to attend the final competition by separating you into specific roles, so each of you could focus on the knowledge required for that specific role. And then all of you together will work as a team, and you will have knowledge that complement each other so that you will have a complete knowledge and a foundation ready for you to compete at the Adobe Creative Jam. So the first role I designed is UX designer. This role in my mind is more of a generalist because in smaller companies, usually the UX designer have to work on almost everything on their own. So I curate some knowledge to help the UX designer to learn more like holistic view of what the entire UX process looks like, but with an emphasis on interaction design. So I curate a lot of knowledge relevant to interaction design. So basically for this role, the person needs to know Adobe XD for prototyping related features and also understand how interactions can be added to the prototype. So basically some of the interaction functionalities available in Adobe XD. And in terms of knowledge, this person should have a general knowledge about the product development workflow, as well as some basic concepts behind interaction design. And then the responsibilities include maybe help design interactions, especially helping figure out the user flows. The user's flow design will act as a blueprint for UI designers to work on a high fidelity prototype later. And a wireframe is something UX designers often do too. That's also helpful for the UI designer to create high fidelity mockup. And then project management is something I considered could be part of the UX designer's role because this person has a general knowledge of the entire process. So this role, this person may perform better as a project manager to make sure that the entire team collaborate well on each stage of the product development process. However, this is not a requirement. After you form your team, I think it's important for you to discuss whether who wants to be the project manager for your team. And then this person will also take responsibilities of, for example, setting up meetings and coming up with a plan for your project, etc. And then later I will talk about the different learning path required. The next role is the UX researcher, and the UX researcher is basically to take advantage, to utilize all sorts of qualitative and quantitative research methods to help investigate the problem and understand users' need. Because all of these research in the end will help inform your design. And then in terms of technical skills, because the UX researcher often is involved in usability testing, so understanding how Adobe XD can do some user testing, the features of Adobe XD user testing will be super helpful. And in terms of knowledge, definitely understanding the various methods often used for user research and usability testing. In terms of responsibility, this person often comes up with user research report and work on personas and also deliver usability reports. And finally, the UI designer, I decided to give each team 2 UI designers. The idea behind this is because the creative challenge only gives you a week to create a high fidelity prototype, and this can be quite challenging, especially for beginners. And most of the signups I see that registered as beginners. So that's why I want your team to have more people to work on the UI design and to be more knowledgeable about that, so you can work more effectively and be able to meet the deadline. So the 2 UI designers basically share the same knowledge and also share the same responsibility. And I imagine that these UI designers will collaborate very closely to create the final high fidelity prototype for your team. And then within your team, you can delegate tasks, like maybe some UI designers will work on the design system and the other one can work on the specific screens, or that you may divide the 10 screens design in, and then give each one 5 of them. So really based on how your team works well, and then you can decide later. So the UI designer will help create pixel perfect designs in line with the rest of the product. And this is very important because for the Creative Jam, it can not be a low fidelity design. It has to be as realistic and close to the final design as possible. So this is a quite demanding task for especially beginners to accomplish. So for technical skills, you need to know the basic prototyping features, especially learning how to use component system that will help your design feel more unified and consistent, but at the same time save you time. And also you need to know collaboration tools, so you know how to share your designs with others. You also need to share this with the committee for the final review of your project. So familiar with those collaboration tools would be very helpful. And in terms of knowledge, it's ideal that you have some fundamentals of visual design background. If not, then I already curated some for you to learn. And also just some foundational understanding of what are good mobile app design and what are things you need to be mindful about. In terms of responsibility, then definitely the pixel perfect prototypes, and then often the UI designers help create style guides or curate icon libraries, and then finally create a design system where everybody knows how to utilize the various design components into the different screens and maybe expand on that. So that's basically the 3 different kinds of roles that are available in a team. And then you can, based on your interest, to do the selection. Another reason why for giving a different responsibility is also that we want you to mimic what it's like working in the real world, because often you're not the person that know it all. You have to learn to collaborate with other people who have expertise in a different area. And so this is trying to model after that. And it's also good for you to have a diverse group of people working together so you can come up with even more creative solutions. So one thing you have to be careful to be mindful about is, because each of you, even though share certain knowledge in the LinkedIn learning path that I curated, a lot of you will have a very specific knowledge that the other team members will never learn about. Because of this, you have to make sure that you are responsible for your team by definitely completing all these tutorials and learning about these foundational knowledge, because your team is reliant on each one of you to provide the knowledge from the area that you have studied. So just something to keep in mind. So to access LinkedIn Learning Path, I already put all the different URLs here, and if you click on it, it will direct you to the different LinkedIn paths. So LinkedIn Learning already include a section to describe what it is about, but once you click here, often you have to go through a NetBadge authentication, and once that's done, you'll be able to see this LinkedIn path. And what you can do next is to click on Start Learning, and then it will add to your learning content. So first of all, you can see there's some general description of the LinkedIn Learning Path, and also some information about the amount of time required. But be mindful that it varies between the different roles, like the UX researcher will have a different time, like the UI designer again have a different time. However, this is not very accurate because one is that it takes in account of another section I offer here called optional resources. So all of these are optional, but it will still be calculated here as the total. So another thing is there are some outside content that I curated and added into LinkedIn Learning Path. Those are not really calculated and counted towards the total time. So that's why UI designer seems to have less content, but it's because there are a few videos like this one and this one. Each of them is like a 30-minute each, and they haven't been counted towards the total time. So don't use this, but more like trying to get a sense and maybe seeing a summarization here to more or less know what the time required. So I've already tried to cut it down as little as possible. So for every specific role, all of you will need to learn the basics of design thinking, and that's like a 30-minute something like course on design thinking, because this is the general structure we're gonna use for the for coming up with idea for a product. So this is required by every role. And next, for user experience, I often for a specific role, I usually include a video that dives a little bit deeper into the role that you're in, so you have better understanding of what this role is about. And then for the user experience, because it's a generalist, I include a very short course on the more like an overview of product development. And then I chose a lot of specific lessons from a course called UX Foundations Interaction Design, because that's like a more like specialty I want this person to develop is on interaction design. And I have to admit that this role has a little bit more content required. So what I recommend is for this person, when it goes to these specific like principles, for example, affordances, motivation, all of these are important, but not something you have to learn immediately if you feel like you're short on time. And for things that I mark as required, those are things you definitely have to watch. So I did a little bit for that for this role, because I felt like this may be a little bit more content, like a 3-hour or so for the entire combined before the first workshop that you have to complete this. So I felt like it may be a little bit much. And also some of the students coming from especially a cognitive have studied cognition may find these are things they already know about, so you can skip them. So that's more like the second section on user experience. And those are things I already put a deadline that you can hear are all due by November 4th, which is the day before the workshop. So those are things more like a general foundation of knowledge that you need to know. And optional resources are things I thought could be useful. I just listed here that for you to explore further. And next, for the UX researcher, again, you will have to watch design thinking, and then I also include some more useful information about being this user research role in the industry. And then I chose a course called UX Foundations Research and then selected a few lessons from this course to teach you some of the important methods about UX research. And to be able to watch it, all you need to do is just click on it. It will be able, it will, start to play.
Intended for anyone.
And it seems like it's playing directly, but it used to be that you can maybe
the work you've done.
Yeah, sorry, I think like it seems to jumping right into the full course. What I recommend is after you watch each video, you come back to this one instead of going to the full course screen, because the full course is not curated and there may contain things that I don't think you have to know right now. So that's the user researcher's content before November 5th. And one thing I forgot to mention about the user experience is all the 3 roles also share this Adobe XD class, which takes about an hour and 30 minutes. And this has to be complete before the second skill workshop, which is really on UI design with Adobe XD. And I thought it's good for everyone to learn a little bit about XD. And this one is organized into developing a mobile app. So I felt like it's more project-based that could be more interesting and relevant to your creative jam. So I recommend, also, and this is actually required for everyone to complete. And again, there are some optional resources available. And finally, for the UI designer, the same with design thinking. And I include some fundamentals about the visual design, just in case you're not coming from a graphic design or design background. And the same with Adobe XD, you are required to watch this by November 18th. However, I did a little bit more individual lessons on, for example, UI kits or some of the collaboration features that I think is important for UI designers to know about. And again, some optional resources for you to watch on your own. So basically, these are all the learning path. And to be able to join the learning path, all you need to do is start learning path. And then once you start, if you kind of lost it, you can go to My Learning. And then you can see under In Progress, you can find this learning path that I just added. And then you can click on it, and then it will drive you back to the LinkedIn path. So again, just to make sure that section 1 and 2 needs to be finished by November 4th, and then section 3 on Adobe XD needs to be finished by before the second skill workshop. And if you have any questions about LinkedIn Learning in general, feel free to email me anytime. And another advantage of doing things on LinkedIn Learning is once you complete a full course, then it will give you a digital certificate that you can later publish on LinkedIn page if you already have one, and to show your future employees, these are the things I've learned in the past through LinkedIn Learning. So it's quite helpful.